Alrighty, so we're at 5 after 2, and I know we've got folks joining us here in the Zoom meeting, and then we've got some folks following us on Facebook Live. So welcome to everybody. My name is Thomas Lopez. I'm one of the newest board members on the chamber, so excited to be part of that. Excited to be part of this first series that we're having, Ask the Expert series, which is being brought to you by our friends at Refuge Marketing. Of course, you probably know Refuge Marketing and Consulting from their good work doing all the social media efforts for the chamber. So all the posts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I think that's it, right? We're not doing anything on Snapchat or TikTok yet.
not at the moment. YouTube soon.
YouTube soon. So they're the ones who are behind the masterminds behind all of those social media posts. So you can thank them. And what better experts to have than our very own social media folks. So we'll get to a more formal intro shortly, but let's just get into some quick business and updates that we have going on in the chamber. And Maureen, by the way, is she's the one behind the scenes making this all work seamlessly. So thank you to Maureen for helping us out there. So do we want to go to the slides there where we've got some updates to share? There we are. All right, so some of the events that we have coming up, even though we're in this crazy period where COVID-19 is severely impacting our realities, the chamber has worked hard to try to continue as much as business as usual as possible, even though we have to do it all remotely. So thanks to the technology, like Zoom, we're able to still connect. And so this is one of the sessions that we're having. Of course, we've had other sessions that you may have attended already. And we have a weekly Chamber Connect that hopefully you've attended already. If not, it's a great way to hop online with some of the fellow chamber members and to connect virtually on a Zoom meeting. And really, it's a way to virtually network since we are confined to our homes. So there's one on May 7th, so that's coming up on Thursday. We've got our virtual Brewing Up Business, which is, normally we would be having coffee and some delicious breakfast treats from one of our chamber members. Unfortunately, again, we're unable to do that, so we're doing it virtually. So make sure you join us on May the 13th to take part in that event. And then the next day, again, we'll have a Chamber Connect. This will be a joint networking event with the Woodlands Pride Group. So excited to have our friends from up north join us for that session. And it will definitely be a fun, spirited event that you won't want to miss. And then, of course, on May the 26th, we'll have our virtual Biz Connect Mixer. Again, this used to be the last Thursday of the month where we'd all meet up for happy hour at one of our chamber members' businesses and really connect and have a good time over some drinks and some nice food. And again, we're working virtually, so kudos to the team for making all that happen. So check the calendar. You can follow along again on all these are advertised in our Facebook page as well as all the other social media platforms. So make sure you are staying tuned to those events, and hopefully you can attend. You'll definitely learn the aspects, the ins and outs of Zoom by attending all of these sessions. All right. So with that, we will invite you to ask questions. So this is an open forum. The way this is set up to work, this is our first one. So, kudos to our friends at Refuge for being the guinea pigs. But again, no better folks to do it than to make this work and show us how it's done. So we will, this is an opportunity to ask questions of the experts. I know myself as a business owner, there are times when, and I'm a one-person shop, so there are times when I'm like, I just want to bounce an idea off someone. I wish I had some marketing friends or I had some finance friends, and so luckily I do, and so I'll reach into my network and call folks, but sometimes they're not available. So consider this an opportunity to tap the brains of some really smart folks who've been there and done that and worked with clients on these various topics. So so if you have questions, you can chime in. You can put them in the chat box if you're in the Zoom meeting or Facebook Live. We're watching that as well, so you can put the questions there, and we'll make sure they get asked to Tiffany and Simone. Okay. And so that's basically how this is going to run. So this is all. I mean, there's no formal slides, no more presentation after this. It's just questions that you may want to ask our marketing pros. So by way of introduction, we've got Tiffany and Simone, both from Refuge Marketing Consulting. Tiffany is a Houston native. She's passionate about her local community and most importantly about local businesses. They don't stress that enough. I've met with them several times and we've tried to collaborate on a few different projects. And they're very mindful of the nuances of working with small businesses and how they can help relay their marketing needs into something that's really going to translate to better business. And so in 2016, Tiffany became the sole owner of the Refuge Group and worked the company's transition to Refuge Marketing and Consulting. She's got over 25 years of experience, and most of them have been focused on digital media and marketing. And her partner in crime is Simone. Simone is joined Refuge Marketing Consulting back in 2017. She's got a strong background in business development, customer service, and marketing, and crafted through various positions. If you want to know anything about soccer, women's soccer, she's going to have a conversation with you, not just from a marketing standpoint, but an avid fan of the sport. So she's worked with various franchises in both Major League Soccer and National Women's Soccer League. So she's got a lot of experience, like I said, both talking the sport and with marketing the sport. So with that, before we dive into the questions, I kick it over to you, Simone and Tiffany, just to say hi and just tell us a little bit about yourself. So maybe you can tell us what your superpower is in terms of the business world, in terms of marketing, and what you like most about your job and what you do in your business or your profession.
Yeah, so I know most of the people in the chat we've met before, but just in case, I'm Simone and this is Tiffany. We, as Thomas mentioned, have been working together now for almost 4 years. And after I came on board, we made a distinct decision to work primarily with small to medium-sized businesses here in Houston. And it looks like a lot of people on the call fall into that category, so we're really excited to answer your questions. But to answer, was our superpower, a business superpower, Thomas asked. Tiffany, if you want to go.
Yes.
First.
I think for us, it's actually the trust we have with our customers. So a lot of our clients, probably half of our clients, I haven't done a calculation recently, but are people that have been with Refuge since we started over 10 years ago. And I think that's because we build a really strong foundation with our clients where they know that whatever we recommend or whatever, we think that's best for their marketing that we'll present is because we truly think that and that it's in their best interest. And also they, whatever they tell us, it goes in the vault, so they don't have to worry about that as well. So I think that's our biggest thing.
Yeah. I guess my superpower, if you will, and my favorite thing about working with Refuge is just connecting with other small businesses in the area. People that, run their own businesses, I think are a different breed. And the more that we can build this community, especially through this chamber, it's been very rewarding. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo, what you guys say in terms of really wanting to help out small businesses. I know that customers that you have worked with, they often talk about how you are almost, you mentioned that it goes in the vault, almost clergy-like. So it's someone that they can confide in, talk about their mistakes, and you guys, help them dust off and really, again, translate that vision they have into something that's, can be digestible bites for their clients in the marketing world. So yeah, it's great to have you guys here as the experts that we get to pick your brain and ask some questions. So let's dive into some questions. So there's one in the chat already. So let's go to those. I know we've got some prepared in case people are shy, which this group is not shy. So definitely ask questions. So the first question that's come up is what's your view on the different conversations you might have on different platforms, and what percent of effort on each?
Yeah, so Tim, specifically, are you asking now in this sort of COVID-19 reality or sort of general best practices?
What I consider the new normal.
Yeah.
We're not leaving this for a while, so
absolutely.
Even when we do leave.
I think, speaking from the social media standpoint, and I'm sure Tiffany will echo this across the board, because we are a full service digital marketing agency, so we do a bit of everything. But the number one key across the board is just to constantly be reassessing. because this is changing. This is our new normal, but our new normal this week was a little different from last week and the week before. So a lot of those sort of initial best practices we had to reassess right away. Now, when it comes to different platforms and percentages on each, I think that's really tied to who your ideal customer is. So where are they and how can you best speak to them? You know, it's typically a different type of person who's spending a lot of time on TikTok than it is on Facebook. So yeah, exactly. So, you know, it really is diving in on, you know, what's your genuine message and who your ideal client is. And something before we get to the next question, I do want to say is this is being recorded. So if you do have any, you know, super specific questions about your business that maybe you don't feel comfortable asking in this wide of an audience, we'll be offering a free hour consultation with anyone on the call. So feel free to set that up with us after the fact.
But one thing you can do if you're wanting to see, you know, how that has changed is for like Facebook, Twitter, most of them have an insights tab. So you can go onto your company page and you can kind of see what demographics you're reaching right now. And that'll give you an idea. So you can say like, so if your customer base goes all the way from like 15 years old to 80 years old. So you're trying to decide, you know, for younger, you know, it might skew TikTok, but if you want to say like, oh, okay, on Facebook, I'm reaching folks that are 25 to 45. So I want to skew my messaging that direction. So really looking at the demographics of your customer base and how they're interacting with you currently. You can actually find a lot of that data right now for free and mine it.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, it's a different world, and there's so many. Every platform has a different, you know, a different audience. So it's important to, you know, depends on, like you said, your customers. So that's great. Another question from the chat. You've got a creative producer and manager for live events and performing arts industry. So this person's an advisor and a fundraiser, and understands artists and artistic companies are seeking ways to stay engaged with audiences and communities around the globe. So what platforms are you hearing about that are good for streaming content while engaging with interactivity through things like chat, virtual meetings and whatnot?
Yeah, this is the perfect time to do a little exploring, right? Get out of that sort of routine you may have had for the way that you were trying to reach your potential clients. And so we're finding that it's important to try to be more creative, but also keeping in mind the tone of what's appropriate in the context at the moment. But across the board, I mean, obviously we're on Zoom and Facebook right now, going live on Instagram, posting on TikTok. Those are all ways that, you know, you could explore maybe outside of what you were already doing.
You can look at building a YouTube subscriber, like creating a channel, building up your subscribership to that. And so actually when you go live on Zoom, you can go live on YouTube as well. And that's so they get a notification kind of like they do with a Facebook Live saying that a channel they subscribe to is going live at the moment. And then it also like archives it. And Google loves YouTube because they own YouTube. So they're always going to give you a little bit more of a SEO boost for that. So it's another way to get more eyes on it as well without putting in much effort.
And depending on, you know, the specific event that you're looking to promote, and I see you're asking again about platforms, depending on, again, what specifically it is you're looking to promote, Twitch is also a great place to explore. If it's, I believe you asked a little bit about games in the question here in the chat box. So that is definitely something I would spend some time logging into and getting familiar with.
Yeah, and there's the traditional YouTube model of if you can get up to, I think it's 100,000 views, they start running advertising and giving you a portion of the cut of advertising that runs on your videos. But there is also, now that they've started YouTube Live, so they've started their own TV channel, they are actually picking up shows and they're funding them and producing them themselves. So that's another option.
Great question and great response. Yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities. Like you said, a good time to play with different things, because I know this has been a reflective time for me to be like, okay, I've been on some of these things have been on the back burner, so here's a way to try something new. I've had these, all these contacts for my email list, and I haven't done anything with them. So now's the time to be like, I can devote some time to writing, an email newsletter that's going to get out. So, and similarly playing around on the different virtual platforms. So that's great. Another question came up. Would you recommend posting the same content across all platforms, or should the content vary?
Yeah, this is a great question. And Shanice, thanks for asking it. I think, so what we run into a lot is two things. Companies that are looking to, where do I even begin with social? Or I've been doing kind of the same thing and it's stale. And this is the perfect time to see, okay, if you do have a piece of content and you do run it across all platforms, where is it getting traction? And then you can kind of learn through your brand, okay, this is the best type of content for me on Facebook. This is the best type of content for my brand on Instagram. Or do I even need to be on Twitter? Do I need to be everywhere? I would use this time right now to really explore every avenue. And if you haven't been consistently posting across the board to have that kind of data for yourself, you can start with posting that same piece of content, obviously tailoring it via hashtags and formatting it based on size, but to figure out, okay, which platform does this type of content perform the best on?
That's a great question. That one comes up a lot. I think every marketing event I go to, or anytime I'm talking with folks like yourself, the marketing experts, are always, it's going to depend on what you're posting and what that audience wants. I know, again, for my business, I see different upticks depending on which business, right? It works. I see a lot of traction on LinkedIn versus like Facebook, not so much, or Instagram, because I don't do a lot of photos, right?
Right.
So it's those sorts of things that are very different versus Twitter. Really, it's just different messages. So, so it's a great question because go ahead.
I think too the answer is a bit different for a lot of these small to medium-sized business owners or people that work in small to medium-sized businesses, because a lot of times they aren't necessarily a distinct marketing hire. You wear 4 to 5 different hats at your business, and so time is very valuable. And so a lot of the advice we give, if you aren't working with a company like us and you're looking to get started, is to craft what you think is a great post it across the board, and then, like I said, learn from the data that you do get from Facebook Insights, etc.
And spend the time on the post making it a quality post,
Yes.
Instead of worrying about quantity. Don't feel like you have to post every 5 minutes. If you only post once a week, but it's a really good post, it's going to perform a lot better.
Yeah, and we've actually seen a big trend now in this new reality, COVID-19 reality, of brands posting less. So it really is becoming more about that quality over quantity.
On post, is there a certain type of post that you see that work well? I mean, I know there are some times that you see, and maybe it's coming from Facebook, that video really works well. Or back in the day, like this is 5 years ago, so now it's dated information. But video, like not videos, but live pictures of people used to do well. So, I mean, is there one thing that's working well right now?
Across the board, so obviously it varies by industry, right? But across the board, what we've seen, especially with social media, it's kind of, like you said, it's been a reassessing as we've gone through. The first 2 weeks of all of this, most brands went quiet. They didn't know what to post, and the ones that did or forgot to take down scheduled posts that they had posted in advance, they got a lot of backlash because more or less they weren't reading the room. So for us, what we're seeing that is performing the best, not just, within our clientele, but across the board, are people that have an understanding of the tone and are really becoming more community driven. So instead of broadcasting what their brand is doing, they're getting involved in collaborating and how they can better the community. So you're seeing a lot of brands maybe change the way that they're doing business to make it easier and safer for their customers to receive their services. That's where we're seeing success.
One thing that hasn't changed with all this is also that all these social media companies, they really will do whatever they can to make sure you stay in their universe. So like, say if you're doing a post on Facebook, Facebook does really like video, but they like video that you natively post onto Facebook. If you take a YouTube link and put it on Facebook, they'll bury it in the algorithm. They like for stuff to come from them beyond there. So that's something to consider. And all of the ones are like that as well. Like Twitter, if you do a native post of a video there, it's going to perform better than if you link to an external one, because they all basically, they get paid by advertising. The more you stay on their site, the more you're going to see ads that they're running, the more they get paid. So that is one thing to kind of keep in mind whenever you're doing posts, is to try, even though it takes a little more time to load it that way, it does make a big difference.
Okay, great. What was a question that came up on video? So if you're posting video or going live, how long should the video be, and what are the best times for a Facebook Live?
I'm going to start in the first part of the question.
And how long it should be?
Yeah.
Well, the rules have kind of broken on that. It used to be on a Facebook Live, you really didn't want to go more than 15 minutes at most. And that actually, in a lot of times, like 30 seconds to 3 minutes did really well. But now if you have great content and you're sharing things that people are interested in and most importantly, are going to help them in some way. Yeah, people have been staying on an hour to an hour and a half. Like there's been people getting consistent good results that way.
And I think we're seeing too, again, about having to constantly reassess is the best time for social across the board, for posting or for when you're going to do a Facebook Live. There used to be some very set times and routines, right? A lot of people were getting on Facebook right after lunch at work. That was the big time, and now that's shifted. So what is great is there are a lot of, for people that maybe aren't in the marketing world every moment of the day, there are a lot of resources out there online that can help you determine what the best time for you based on your industry is to go live. I know we're seeing a big shift on people being on from 10 to 11 a.m. But again, that may change for your specific industry. And that used to be that 1 to 2 time period after lunch, midweek.
That's a great question, and appreciate the answer. Speaking of things, different tools that you can use, what are some free things that you can do to market your business?
Well, one of the biggest things is to have, if you have a physical location, to have a Google My Business listing. It's kind of the top free thing that Google offers that gets you noticed in search rankings. So that's the thing that a lot of people have had on their list and they haven't kind of gotten around to doing. So claiming your listing and then completely filling it out. It's one of the best free things to do. I think stepping up your social media.
Yeah, I think this is like I said, it is a really good time to just to reassess your entire marketing strategy. We always say to the people that we work with, like, you can't be an expert in everything, and you only have so much time. So right now, when you have a little bit more time, how can you build a larger strategy moving forward, and then keep in mind that things are constantly changing. And if we do have a second wave of this, or down the road, if another virus has come along, are you prepared? Do you have a strategy in place? I think a lot of people are really focused on when do we get back to normal? And the thing that we could be focusing on right now is how do you prevent stagnating if this were to happen again?
Yeah. And it's a great time to try video. Like, there's a few folks on here that I know do live videos.
Yeah, Patrick, we've seen your videos, are great.
Tim, you were saying you do them too. So if there's ever been a time that you're like, I've always kind of wanted to dip my toe into that, try it now, give it a shot.
Yeah, and worse, I mean, like no one's watching, right? I mean, that's the big fear, like, oh my gosh, what if other people see it? But I mean, I'll tell you, like when I've done a live video, it's like 1 or 2 watches. So it's like, don't worry if you think, oh my gosh, the world's gonna, I mean, maybe it is, and maybe you do something funny and it goes viral, and then there you go, now your business
even better.
Yeah, and I'm no social media expert, but I didn't like how my voice sounded for the longest. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do a video, and but people watch it, so don't do it just because you don't like how you sound or look in the video, because a lot of people will actually find it interesting.
I think something to shout you out, Patrick, is you're genuine and you're answering questions that people have in regards to your industry. So you're providing real value in a short period of time for folks. That's really what does perform well right now.
Thanks, y'all. And I guess a question I would have is, in y'all's branding and messaging, what's it look like moving forward now that we've been at this point for like 2 months now. How does that change? Or are we like, hey, everything's back open, so we're going to forget about, because a lot of the marketing was, hey, we're here, call us, and we're going through this with you as well. So
Right.
what's it look like after this?
How many emails did you get from major brands that you were like, thanks?
All of them.
Yeah, it was the same message over and over. And so in that regard, the people that got the message out first were the most genuine. But really, at this point, those messages aren't hitting home at all. If you want to jump in.
I mean, I think one of the big things to keep in mind with their messaging is we are starting to open back up, right? And they are starting to, people are starting to go back to work. That's all happening, but there still is a lot of uncertainty as to how things are going. And like, if you're going to go to a store, what are you going to expect? So there is still a very strong point of trying to communicate and letting people know what to expect if they're coming to your office, or if you're going to meet with them, or if they're coming to your store. So there's no surprises. Like last week, we did a couple of curbside deliveries, and one of them was really well laid out and was like, so you're going to come here. This is where you're going to park. We're going to come outside. We're going to put it in your trunk. This is how we want you to interact with our employees. We really appreciate your cooperation. The other one kind of sent a similar message, but when we got there, that was not how it happened.
Yeah.
And it was for a brand that we've personally used for years, and now it's kind of like, do we trust them anymore? Because they said they were going to do one thing, but then they did another. And so really keeping that in mind. You want to meet expectations. Most of the time when people get negative reviews on like Google or their Facebook or anywhere, a lot of times it has to do with what the person's expectations were.
Right.
So you want to make sure they know if they're coming to your store. If you're going to want people to use hand sanitizer when they walk into the store, let them know that. Or if you're expecting people to wear masks or any of that, and that your employees also are going to follow through with the same message too.
Yeah, walk through that customer journey yourself first. Keep notes on that and craft your message around that.
Yeah, I think that's important, is just, understanding your stakeholders, right? And making sure they all are invested in whatever you're trying to deliver. So it's great. The experience you guys just discussed, right? Yeah. On paper or on the website, they were like, here's what it's going to be, but they failed to secure support from their other stakeholder, the employees, by training them and making sure they understood the value of completing the transaction from website to curbside delivery, right? And then, of course, the community, right? You don't want to be that one restaurant that gets reported on the news or labeled because you were the epicenter of an outbreak, right? So it's making sure that you're mindful about your journey and the customer's journey. So,
yeah, and I think we're all on social personally, and we've all seen businesses go viral recently for one thing or another, whether it be an email they sent out or a sign that they have hanging in the window proclaiming, one way or the other. So it's being cognizant of that as well.
Yep. All right. Great question. It's good. One of the questions I had for you guys was like good practices. So Pat, you were able to, do 2 wins. We were able to highlight Patrick and then also talk about a best practice. One of the questions that came up in the chat was regarding Zoom and sharing to YouTube. Is that a free version or is it a paid version? So just more tips on using Zoom and the free versus paid options, if you can.
I think it's the paid version, but the paid version really isn't crazy expensive. It's $15 a month. So even if you wanted to try it for 1 month, it's not a major investment. You can give it a shot, and if you don't like it, then you can disconnect it. But I mean, we typically before this, most of our virtual meetings, we did some on Zoom, but a lot of times we used Google Hangouts, but we've actually switched to Zoom because it does offer all those options. And so even though, we could use Google Hangouts for free, Zoom, it just works so much better. And it does transmit to all those places and makes it easier for recording and for group discussions.
I want to actually go back to a question in the chat because it looks like we missed Lee's question, which was right here. What is the best time of day and week to reach the business market with an email campaign? And it says, we work to send emails during live time when mail is coming into the inbox, when they're working 9:15 to 11 or 1:15 to 3:30.
So this, like how it's changed the times for social posting, we've seen a big change in email opens and what times those happen. So like for for one of our clients is like a high-end luxury retailer. And we would send stuff on Saturdays. That was like the best time for them. But now actually 8 a.m. Monday morning is the best open rate that we're seeing for them and in a lot of our emails, because I think most people are getting to work on Monday, or not getting to work, but in a lot of cases working from home. But Monday's like that day where you've had the weekend and you're kind of have had a chance to like regroup and tackle the world again. And so when you open your email box, instead of it being as overwhelming that it can sometimes be, it's a lot easier on that day for people to tackle it. So we've seen better response rates on Monday mornings than we used to.
And that's been in the last week and a half. So keep that in mind, because this is constantly changing. And that's part of our job, is staying on top of that for each of our brands and their email list. What works for them may not necessarily directly translate for you, but the best way to figure that out is to kind of play around with it in this time frame, and keep an eye on it. If you have a couple weeks in a row where you have some great success and then you see it changing, that seems to be more of our new normal, right? Is that things are constantly evolving.
Just on terms of tracking that stuff, you guys have mentioned keeping an eye on it. What are some ways that people can monitor the success of either their email campaigns or how well their social media posts are doing?
The biggest way, like if you're sending out like large emails to large groups, and so you're using something like MailChimp or a lot of people still use Constant Contact, all of those are going to provide the results from any of your email campaigns, as far as like the open rates, how many people click through, your bounce rates, which is, how many people your email, like something's wrong with their email, so it came back, or people who unsubscribe. Those are kind of all the things that you can look at through there. And then you can kind of look at the time of day. So if you have a consistent time of day that people are opening emails and interacting with them, that's a pretty good one for you. But if you have where every other day that people are opening at that time, you can look at your subject lines. Subject lines have a massive impact on whether people open at any time of day. If you have a great subject line that really hits a pain point for them at that moment, they're going to open it whether it's 11 o'clock at night or it's 3 p.m. And for social.
Yeah, and same with social. I think a lot of people, and again, it comes down to time, I think, for a lot of people, but they don't spend enough time using the free resources that each social platform provides. So whether it's you yourself tracking that or someone in your company, making sure that you're spending a little more time right now figuring out what the best times are to post, the best time to do video, all these questions that you're asking, the data really is there. And then obviously one of the benefits in working with an agency like us is we have access to even more data that can help you. But there are so many great free features that you guys already have access to.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that folks, they're posting, and so they forget to go look at those things. And it takes time, right? You got to track it and analyze it, but there are ways to track it, because it's not just some mysterious thing that you guys have because you're marketing experts and you run a marketing firm. Like, anyone can go and look in those tabs and see the success and the reach and the likes and the reactions to the post, as well as when you're using email. Because I was talking to a client the other day, I was asking them, they said, oh, we sent out 80 emails, but they did it one by one from their Outlook account. And I'm like, well, you can use free things too, right? And so it's just making sure that, folks are aware of those tools that are out there if they're not using them already.
I mean, if you want to send single emails and track those, you can actually do that as well.
Right.
So like you can use like Salesforce or HubSpot or
CRM service. Yeah. And I think, all the same advice can be applied to your advertising too online. So whether it's Google ads or actual Facebook ads, etc., there are plenty of free tools that you can use to assess that. I think a lot of people, the first thing that they cut in this time, because it's a tough time, was their marketing budgets. But it may be time to reassess that, especially for Google advertising. The cost for ads, depending on industry, has dropped for certain subjects. So maybe something to look back into.
Okay, great. Okay, so we got another question in the chat. Speaking of agencies, a couple of questions. PR versus marketing. Can you assist with PR and getting media attention? Is that something, I guess, that's related to what you guys do?
So we're a full service digital marketing agency. We do not do any PR in-house. We do have some great companies that we partner with if we're working on a campaign that does need that. But we handle sort of anything on the digital side, from branding, building websites, SEO, advertising, social media. But
we do like PR syndication and releases, but as far as that, the thought of like where, you know, we call Kate or you and ask them to produce a video segment, that's not so much our expertise. We have some great people that we work with when those come up.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, folks in the chamber that if you look in the directory that are available to help with those sorts of activities. All right. Okay, no questions on the chat. Or I don't see any. Maureen, I don't see any, but I don't know if you can see any questions in the Facebook Live. Did anything pop up there? Before I ask one of my other questions here.
Looks like Tim asked another question in the chat.
Oh, there it is. Yep. So I'll ask it. Yeah. So LinkedIn, new friends, it used to kill me. What are you seeing as good practice today for connecting on LinkedIn? Using groups on LinkedIn or Facebook, the value that comes from them.
So ironically, we were literally talking about this as we were dialing in, as we both got a connection from someone we've never met in Poland as we logged into this call. But it's kind of a necessary evil with LinkedIn, right? In terms of connecting and best practices, I think the LinkedIn can still be a fantastic tool in terms of business development. You have to be very conscious of the message that you send along with your connection. 95 or more % of the ones that, you know, we personally get, or the brands that we work with personally get, are people asking for things before they even know you. And I would say with LinkedIn, it's just kind of the same mentality that anyone should use towards business development, which is, you know, making a genuine connection with someone first before putting the hard sale.
One thing to think about as an individual when you connect with them, a lot of times they can see your other connections. So you could be opening up all of your friends to whoever that person is. So maybe when thinking about making that, like accepting them or not, is, you know, thinking about that, because they're, you know, we've had a couple of clients that kind of just accepted everybody, and then we've had an issue where we had to, you know, block someone and report them and get rid of them because they started harassing their friends. So that's just and not, you know, in a really terrible way, but just bombarding them with like, hey, hire us, guess what we do.
And to the second part of your question, I see here that popped up in regards to the use of LinkedIn or Facebook groups and the value that comes from them. We've seen a kind of across the board in the COVID era, we could call it, is that Facebook groups have really, what's the word I'm looking for, really gained popularity again and exploded. Yeah, so Facebook groups right now, I think especially the Chamber, it's been a great way for the folks who are already members to stay in touch. It's a difficult time, so it's a great place for people to be honest with one another. Hey, we need help here. What advice do you have here? And the same goes for LinkedIn. I think there are always going to be those Facebook group and LinkedIn groups that, you know, you get in what you put in, if you will, right? Where nobody's really connecting. It's everyone, it's almost like just business cards, right? I'm here, this is what I do. And so I think it's just monitoring. If you're starting one, monitoring it, that you're cultivating the community and the conversation that you want to see. And if you're joining one and you're noticing right away that that's not helping me, you don't need to spend any time there. So
there is a way that a lot of like companies have built success with Facebook groups is by thinking of a problem that their client has, that their potential customer has, and then building a Facebook group around that and putting that in the actual title of your Facebook group. Because people who need help with that are going to join it. And then you as a person, as one of the founding members, just making sure that you help create a great culture in that group, because that will make people want to join, that will make people be active in it. So not, you know, even though it is, you're building this pool of potential prospects based on what the problem is, but not dominating the conversation, but providing helpful expertise every now and then. And then with LinkedIn, LinkedIn groups definitely need whoever creates them to be an active member. If you're not in there promoting it from the beginning, there's a lot of people that will join it for its name, just so that when people go to their profile, they see that they've, joined whatever this LinkedIn group is. But if you are in there and you're actively, answering people's questions and promoting conversations, it will build as well. It just takes a little longer, typically, than Facebook does.
And sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned one example of just going to the chat. Sorry. You mentioned one example of like having a group where you're kind of speaking to the problem. And one of the questions that came up in the chat was like using Facebook groups for business to business versus business to customer. So I guess when you're talking about solving a problem, that's more of a business to customer example.
Right.
In a lot of cases, and not in all. So there's some industries that the folks in that industry don't really get on LinkedIn, and that if they do have some sort of social media business connection, it will be on Facebook. And a great one is like outdoor living companies. So people that are doing, landscaping, contracting, general contractor, home builders, like those kind of folks, a lot of times will be more involved in a Facebook group than they, would ever be in LinkedIn or another place. That's kind of like a big place that they're active.
Yeah, and actually a platform that we haven't talked about at all, but could be perfect for you depending on your industry is Nextdoor. We've seen some people be really successful recently in our local Nextdoor, building their network, whether they're realtors or insurance agents, but it's the same mentality, right? What problem are you solving? What genuine connections can you make with folks? We've also seen, the opposite. Nextdoor does have some interesting folks on it, but I see Illich laughing. He understands. But there are some positives. If you can, they're literally your neighbors, right? So if you can get in there and become a genuine problem solver for folks, you're gaining their trust right away.
And they've made it easier to set up a Nextdoor business page. One thing that's still a big requirement is you can set up your page, but you need to get 3 people to review you and give you a good review before they'll put it public where other people can see it on Nextdoor. But for most companies, it's pretty easy. You just have to make the ask and then you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah, real estate came to mind to me because this morning I saw someone just genuinely ask, what does the market in my neighborhood look like right now, considering selling in the future, but unsure of how things are going. That's a perfect opportunity to jump right in.
Very good. Good. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't know if anyone else has any other questions because we've got just a few more minutes. Can you filter on Nextdoor? Seems to be way too much. So something did pop up.
It is a bit much. And it is also changing as an app as it goes, but
yeah, it's so really they don't offer great filtering yet. If you're on the desktop version, on the left-hand side, they have the different topics that you can go into. I think everyone's favorite is crime and safety. That's always the one that has the most exciting posts. But yeah, that's kind of, and you can search by keyword, which can give you some random results. But
yes.
Yeah, so it is a lot, and it is kind of all over the place. I have a feeling, they have improved it quite a bit since they launched a couple of years ago. And especially once they haven't offered it yet, but they should start offering to like regular people to do like what's called I can't remember the word today, but it's like where you can do your own advertising as a small company. You don't have to have a $100,000 budget to do ads on Nextdoor. So when they release that, they'll have to have improved the search filter feature and a lot of other things. So that's expected to come out in the next 6 months. So we should see that soon.
Lady announcing her need for a divorce lawyer on Nextdoor. So all sorts of activity happening.
Yeah, we saw some interesting ones this morning.
Very good. Well, any other questions from folks? I know my one last question is, should we be getting on TikTok? It's a joke.
I mean,
that's all the rage.
Honestly,
actually, for the entertainment questions,
yes,
that came up earlier, we're asking about how to reach people as an entertainer. TikTok is an amazing place to do that.
Yeah, and actually, on a serious note, I've seen, especially in the attorney realm, we've seen people have a lot of success with TikTok. I mean, just get on there, search your industry, see what's happening, see if there's a way that you can can compete, if you will, in that realm. And then from a personal perspective, it's highly entertaining. So
It really is.
Yes.
You want to have faith in
Very-
our future youth, just watch some TikTok for a while. Like, they're incredibly creative.
it looks like
Very good. So,
And
all
then-
right. Anything else to note before? I mean, the questions that are coming up before. How do we reach you? So, and there it's in the chat box now. So, way to
Yeah,
go,
like
Maureen,
more
all
easy.
over it.
Yeah.
But I guess before we sign off, I mean, anything that you, I mean, as experts in marketing, you think we should know, or messages we should carry forward?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's about being genuine, right? And that was a sort of a pillar that we carried with us before this all happened, and now. So at the, like, having that conversation with yourself of what your clientele is experiencing right now, and can you provide value in this moment? That's really where you need to be digging in marketing wise. But it's going to be constantly changing. So staying on top of everything, and the local guidelines for your business as well, because people will start asking, oh, can we come? What are your hours? Just being prepared.
And right now it can feel really scary, I'm unsure, like, especially with the talk about the economy and everything else. And I think something to keep in mind is, if you had a business model that before this was working well, and you had folks coming in and you were building, growing a business, this is a temporary thing. This is a blip. It doesn't mean that you need to, it's important to adapt to what's happening right now, but don't forget about the core of your business and what made it strong and what made it work really well. And so keeping that in mind while you're thinking of any of these changes, or how you want to adapt to it.
And I know some people hopped on the call later on. We mentioned at the beginning of the call, we're happy to do a free hour consultation with anyone. Even if you're looking just to ask more questions and vent, or if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do. Tiffany's typing in the chat box here, so it's removing me.
Sorry.
But we're happy to provide any help that we can right now. We know it's a tough time for everyone.
We have a link on Calendly that you can sign up for the consultations. So I'm just trying to type it in and send it. I don't know if it's going to work.
That's not a link.
Well, it
Perfect.
doesn't.
Well,
You copy it and paste it into your search bar, it'll come up.
expert advice from our experts. So I very much appreciate you guys sharing your guidance with us, and your experience, and just kind of tales of the tape from everything that's been going on in COVID-19 world. So I appreciate again, everything you've shared. Appreciate the questions. The interaction's great. I love to see the networking in the chat. That's awesome. So Tiffany and Simone, thank you very much from Refuge Marketing Consulting. Thank you to Maureen for working the technical stuff and making it all run smoothly. So Maureen is with Manifest Creative. I'm Thomas from Economy Works, and love to be here. Before we sign off, I see Tammy's on, so I don't know, Tammy, if anything to note with our last our first Ask the Experts here.
Well, I just want to say again, thank you to Tiffany and Simone. Great job. I think this is exactly how we envisioned it, with this very much interactive session and supplying such good information. And Thomas, we appreciate you. Thank you for moderating today. I would just say, if you have any other ideas for Ask the Expert topics that you'd like to see covered, you can shoot me an email at tammy.wallace@houstonlgbtchamber.com, and we'll work to get Ask the Expert sessions over the next couple of months. We're going to continue these. So thank you very much. Appreciate y'all for being here.
Well, we appreciate you guys having us. And Thomas, thank you for being gentle with us.
Most definitely. You're good friends there. I would never do anything to put you guys in harm's way. Shield you from it. That's what I do here. So
Yeah, you did a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
well, thanks. Appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you very much, and we'll let everyone get back to business. And yeah, if you guys get bored, I'll shameless plug for my podcast. You can listen to Let's Talk About Gay Stuff and do LGBT history. So there you go. Something to binge on your long walks when you're doing the with the pups. So, but yeah, thanks everybody, and have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.